Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So it's such a beautiful opportunity that we have here to come together to start some conversations about mindset as part of the new mindset series. And, you know, I think we've been communicating about these things in our own personal lives, professional lives for a long time, and thinking about how can we bring these into the platform of Sikhi and explore them through the lens of Sikhi, Gurbani, but also bringing in the latest science and psychology. Because the truth is that we're all struggling, and we have struggled with a range of things to do with mind and body. And I think we've found some helpful tools and come across things that have helped to help us personally, have helped us. And we hope to be able to kind of have conversations about this for the wider Sangat as well.
Yeah. So for me, this series is about a few things. So some of the things that you talked about, but also, you know, we want to learn about Sikhi and we want to learn about Gurbani, but often the conversation that's missed is how do we make that practical? How do we apply it in our daily lives? And we have some of those conversations, and we thought it would be great to put them out there and really, you know, talk about the challenges more openly, but also talk about, you know, this holistic way of living. Sikhi spirituality is not separate from our daily life, and our mind is not separate from our body or our emotions. So this gives us another opportunity to talk about all of those things and how everything is literally interconnected.
Yeah. For me, there was a few incidents that recently occurred, and I was looking into male mental health, and I discovered that the number one cause of death for somebody in my age group, so the thing that I'm most likely to die of statistically, is suicide. And I thought there's definitely not enough awareness about men's mental health and these types of issues. And another book I was reading was about anxiety, and it looked at studies that were done during the COVID period, and they found the most anxious nation in the world, the nation that experienced the highest levels of anxiety, is America. And in second place were Canada and the UK. So I think there's a big need to address mental well-being from the lens of Gurbani.
I think there's a perception, isn't it, in our community, and a sense of, okay, like if you're a Sikh, or if you're following the Sikh way of life, that you shouldn't need extra support, or, you know, reading the Gurbani is enough, doing the Simran should be everything that you need in order to live a healthy life and feel good mentally and physically. And I think personally, I've experienced that we need support in different ways and from different places. And, you know, there might be some things that we'll be discussing that can enable us to connect deeper with the message of Gurbani and Sikhi, and allow us to draw from that to make practical changes in our life. So I think it'll be really helpful to explore some concepts, some issues that we'll be talking about. For example, we'll be talking about men's mental health. We'll be talking about mental health in general, anxiety, low mood. We'll be exploring issues around self-esteem, around challenges that Sikhs might face or Amritdharis might face, relationship difficulties. So we're hoping to cover a range of topics, and we'd be really interested in hearing what people are interested in knowing more about or want us to discuss further. So we'd really like this to be a platform where it's not just us talking and deciding which topics are important, but that we can really come together with the Sangat and explore topics that are relevant for them.
Yeah. And I think a way to really deepen our understanding of things is to share experiences. And I think that's going to be a really valuable part of this, just sharing our own life experiences, but also having other people on to talk about what they've experienced and how they've overcome that. Yeah. So for me, a big thing is always solutions. What are the solutions? What are the practical things that we can take and implement in our lives?
Yeah.
And there's the Shabad Man Tan To Gur Shabad Vichari. The mind and the body gets cleaned by doing Vichar of the Shabad. So I think if we can bring everything back to Gurbani and relate everything back to Sikhi, then we can fulfill those worldly and spiritual buckets at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's a lot of focus on the reason why this is about the mind. And although we will be addressing concepts to do with lifestyle and physical health as well, because they're all interlinked, but I think the emphasis on the mind is just simply because sometimes the other aspects of our life, the physical, the external, we're quite aware of, how to manage those, what we need to do externally with our physical health. And it's easier to talk about those topics because, our physical health is visible and it feels more concrete. Whereas the mind can sometimes be a bit difficult to explore. It's hidden. We can hide it. We can hide what's going on internally for us in terms of our mental well-being. And Gurbani tells us that actually the mind is the source of dukh and the source of happiness. And that actually the mind contains lots of jewels, precious, mat vich ratan jawahar manik, that the mind, the mat, can potentially contain lots of precious jewels. And so if we can access if we can mat vich ratan jawahar manik je ek gur ki sikh suni, if we can connect with even just one aspect of the message of Gurbani. So I think Sikhi lends itself well to this topic of the mind.
Yeah. And I think that's really important, because often when we're having our own issues, our own problems, we're suffering in some way, we will often look outward to try and find what is the solution. If only this person will change, or I'll be happy when I achieve this or that. And, we've got this conquer your mind and you can conquer the world based on Manjit Jagjit, and really delving a bit deeper into understanding the mind, the subconscious mind. What is it that prevents us from making the changes and becoming who we really want to become, from acknowledging that we are Jyot Sarup, that the light of Vaheguru is within us, and really having the opportunity to get into that and figure that out. And, how does Guru transform us? How were people transformed when we read stories about when Guru was walking around in their physical form, trying to really get into the science and the understanding of that and the quantum physics and how the mind works, and actually, again, using that and applying it to our own lives.
And in Gurbani, it talks about how everything stems from the thought. So the thought produces a behavior, which produces habits, which produce somebody's potential outcomes in life. And that applies to everything. So it's not just the mind for the mind's sake and mental health, but when you look at things like sleep, exercise, weight loss, all of these play into the mind and the battle with the mind. So if you can get that, if we can watch these series of videos, this is going to help with all of those aspects, not just the mental health part.
And as well as kind of sharing our own experiences, we're hoping to get people on who have their own experiences of struggling with their mental health, physical health, and speaking about kind of how they've overcome it, what the journey's like for them, because we can all resonate with struggling, and it can really help to not feel so alone with what you're struggling with when you hear somebody else's story. And at the same time, these people will be working on their self-development and be transforming themselves, and we can learn a lot from speaking to them. So we hope to have that as a big element of the show as well.
And I think this channel is about being real and raw and, having the courage to be vulnerable. And I know, Viji, you're going to be talking about some of your experiences, and, you guys are talking openly about your marriage and some of the challenges you faced. And I'm talking about my experiences as well. And I think that really helps us all to connect, to know that we're all human, that we've all been through things, but then we have these different ways, these different tools of overcoming. And one of the things that we're going to keep referring to is this course that with Maharaji Kirpa that we've been able to work on, which is an 8-week course, which is healing and true self-discovery.
Yeah, and the course was born out of our own journeys and struggles with our own well-being and bringing us the Sikhi into our self-development. And, we found so much benefit from bringing together mind-body medicine, quantum physics, Gurbani, Simran, and bringing all those together in such a way that really, really transformed us, has really helped to transform us in a way that I didn't really believe that it was possible for me to do so. And I think having that personal experience of it and doing that work has just I think made us both, I think you've had your own journey, but made us both very passionate about getting this out there, making sure that other people can also benefit from this stuff, because it truly is life-changing. There's so many things you can do to transform yourself. And there's so many books out there, self-help things. And, I think we've found, for us, this has been the formula that has really shifted things in terms of our internal selves. And, we would really want this we want everybody to be able to benefit from this. So we're hoping to have this online course where, we'll have presentations, we'll have an interactive element where people can come and start or continue their own journey of personal transformation, and with Guru's grace, see some incredible outcomes.
Yeah, and the very fact that the three of us are sitting here is a testament to that. It's not in our comfort zone to be sitting in front of cameras and putting ourselves out of there, but because we feel so passionately about the changes that have happened in our life, the changes that we're seeing with people we work with. I think that's why we're really here, is we want to share that with everybody out there. But we also want to know, what are your struggles? What do you want to work on? What are the answers that you're looking for? We can't promise that we have them, but, together we want to be part of that solution, because there's no point in just sitting there and complaining and saying, why is our community not doing this? Why are the Pachadics not doing that? Why isn't this exist in Sikhi? Or why aren't people talking about it the way that we're talking about it? So this is time for us to step up, and us as a community to step up and say, actually, let's talk about it. Let's talk about some of those taboo subjects like mental health and other things. And let's talk about it openly, because we're all facing them, really. So one of the biggest things coming out of the work that we've been doing is, why can't we change? And just starting to understand the subconscious mind that, I'm so into self-development, reading books, watching videos, but I was still struggling to change myself. But when I started learning about the subconscious mind, and then I started, with Benji's help, kind of seeing what Guru was talking about it in Gurbani as well, and bringing that together and having this understanding of quantum physics and how everything is connected, and that really has made a huge difference in my life. So we're really, really excited to share some of that stuff.
And some of the guests that we'll have, the topics that we'll cover will include obesity, chronic health conditions like diabetes, depression, anxiety, low mood, single mums, all sorts of different types of interesting topics, interesting guests from all walks of life.
So why did we pick the name Mindset Series?
Viktor Frankl was a survivor of a Jewish concentration camp. He was a doctor, and his whole book is about your experience of a situation is not defined by the situation, but it's all defined by your mindset. So even in the concentration camps, when he was working with victims who were near the edge of death, he found some people were able to find the beauty in a flower that they could see in the distance. And some people were consumed by the situation that they were in. So our experience, although not as extreme, if we can get the Mindset Series, if we can get our mindset and change our mindset, then we can really have an impact on our life.
Yeah. And Gurbani tells us, Hannah, that Gar sukh vasya, bahar sukh paya, that if we can experience peace within the home of our body, then we will experience peace in the external world as well. That it's not the other way around, even though our whole lives we're brought up thinking that when we get that job, when we get that partner, when we get that perfect relationship, when we have those children, when we have that bigger house, then, we will experience happiness. Whereas, what you've just described, that really beautiful account, and what we know as well from our personal experience intuitively, is that when the internal is settled, then the external looks good. And so mindset for me is just a way of exploring how do we experience that peace within our internal home, and what are the things that don't allow us to experience that. And Gurbani talks about the game of life and the game of the mind versus the Panchjor, and understanding the Atma, and just understanding that game that we're all part of. And I think sometimes when we're struggling, we can feel a lot of shame, like, why am I struggling? Why can't I overcome this problem? Or why can't I get past my anger or my lust or whatever? And I love this game of life analogy that Gurbani has, where it's like, actually, we're all fighting this internal battle where we have the mind, as supposed to be the king of the body. And then you have these opponents, the Banjor, whose job it is, who have been given this job by Akal Purakh, whose job is to take our mind away from peace and away from connection with the One. And so I feel like we can bring in so much around Gurbani, and it offers such a non-shaming and a very normalizing perspective on why it is that we struggle. And so I'm really looking forward to having conversations about that as well.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, because for me, being someone who's always been quite hard on myself and put myself down, low self-esteem in the past, I think those kind of conversations are really empowering, to know that, there is this force that is not necessarily me, that takes me towards kam, krodh, lobh, towards lust, towards greed, towards attachment, ninda, chugli, gossiping, slander. And it's not that I'm not going to take responsibility for it, but it's just knowing that actually that's not the truth of who I am, that there's these forces at work, but actually Guru has given us the practical tools on how to overcome that and realize the truth of who we are. And so for me, what mindset represents is that empowerment that Maharaj has given us, that whoever you think you are, whatever has happened to you, your trauma, your experiences, your limitations, your health, your wealth, whatever it is you think that is holding you back, you can overcome that. Right? So, we have all these sakya, we have all these stories where Guru's telling us about the Paras, the philosopher's stone that changes people from iron into gold. And that really resonates for me, because for a long time, I just felt like I wasn't a good enough person, and I'm still working on it. But for me, I really feel passionate now, this true change is possible, true transformation is possible. And we're starting to scratch the surface and find, what are the elements of that? What are the keys for that? How can you actually feel whole within yourself without trying to find that love or that acceptance from outside? How can you truly feel in Chardi Kala, like mindset and Chardi Kala? Sometimes we just band these terms around and kind of use them in a cliched way. But actually, this is about how is that really, truly possible? How can you actually become the person who you want to become? And that can be whatever it is. This is not about judging, or are you going to use it to change your career? Are you going to use it to find a husband? Or it's not about that. There's no judgment here at all. It's just what is the core of what Guru is giving us? What is that gift? And how can we practically use it?
The other thing the Mindset series will give is reassurance and hope and haunsla to the people who listen to it, because you'll get to meet people who are going through similar experiences to yourself, if not the same, and you'll be able to relate to their story, find strength in their story, and it will uplift those people who listen.
And I think it's important to say that we are completely normal people. We have our flaws. We have many bad days as well as good days. So we're not sitting here from a place of being better than anybody else. We're just here because we feel passionate and we want to share our experiences. So, we're totally open to what anybody wants to talk about. And even if people have different opinions and understandings, Maharaj says, Aap apni budh hai jiti. We all have our own understanding of what Gurbani is talking about. We all have our own perception of what's going on in our lives. So we want to be really open about that. So if you feel like you want to come on and you want to talk about something and give a different perspective, we're totally open to that.
The series also gives a platform for people to talk about sensitive issues which in our community might not be talked about so often, and then help people who are experiencing those types of situations to seek some support, like conflict in marriage or alcoholism or divorce, for example. Some of the topics which are very widespread in our community, but they're taboo and you can't seek support in every group of people. This virtual platform offers people that opportunity.
And we would even go as far as mentioning the topic nobody likes mentioning, but things like calm and pornography, it's something that people are dealing with in their homes day in, day out. And this is an opportunity to be brave and talk about that, and not in a shaming way, like in a compassionate way, like what is actually going on here and how can we actually deal with that situation rather than just saying you shouldn't do it, right?
And I think it comes back to what you were saying about awareness. You have self-awareness, so then you can try and create a plan or get support or access resources.
Yeah.
But if you're not even giving somebody the opportunity to have awareness around a topic,
Sure.
then it's very difficult to then get the support that you need. So this series will go some way to address that issue.
In a way, it's about talking about all the things that you really want to know about, but you're too scared to ask your parents or ask your sangat or ask the gyani at the gurdwara. Let's talk about it here in an open and adult way, right?
There are a wealth of organizations and resources out there, but sometimes it can be difficult, when you're struggling with something, to know where to look, to know where to find the answers. And so between us, I think we know, and many of you will also be able to, will be very grateful if you could also contribute any information you have about organizations out there. And hopefully we can all come together and develop an amazing resource bank where we can develop self-awareness on a particular thing that we're struggling with, and then learn about the tools we can use to manage, and then see, where we can go to get some further information and support.
And from a male perspective, I don't feel like there's that much out there for men. So we will have a series just for men with only men, so that we can talk about, no offense, so that we can talk about some of the issues which are unique to that gender.
We might as well just leave now. Clearly want to get rid of us already.
Yeah,
Well, on that note, we should probably have a series that is just for
It's
women,
for women,
just talking
absolutely.
about women's issues too, right?
Yeah.
Definitely, all of this stuff is needed. It's very difficult to have open conversations when you around your wife or your daughter, if that's the person you're having an issue with, and to sit in a room together and have a conversation around that. It can very easily get heated, or you can get your backs up around a topic. Whereas if you're with a peer, with somebody who's going through a similar experience, you can have a heart-to-heart without that potential conflict or butting heads together. So having these platforms, be it for men or for women or for adolescents going through issues, whichever group it may be, this is a really vital seva that's needed, and it's long overdue. We are really excited to start the Mindset series. And if you want to not miss out, then you need to subscribe. You need to hit the notification bell. You need to tell all your friends, get your family together for date night and watch the Mindset series together. This is going to be a vital part of our community and our family's life in the future.
So we'll also be taking you through some guided meditations, kind of step-by-step approach on how to do Simran. I think it'll be really exciting when we're talking about things that are happening in the self-development world and showing how that's not separate from talking about Sikhi. So some of those concepts that we're learning about, how do they apply? But this is not all just about, boring, serious stuff. We're also going to be bringing in a bit of humor into this. So watch out for that.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa,
Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.